So, welcome again, everyone. Thank you for joining our November Advocates Network meeting. I'd love to have you drop intros in the chat, name, pronouns, and where you're joining from. As always, we're going to start today with just grounding in Great Education Colorado's vision. So, our vision is that through public education, every Colorado student, regardless of their zip code, learning needs, language, identities, or the color of their skin, graduates prepared to lead their best life. And our mission to accomplish this vision is that we harness the power of grassroots activism and diverse, inclusive networks to guarantee that public schools in every Colorado community are welcoming and adequately, equitably, and sustainably funded. So, as always, our goal for the Advocates Network is to create a space for us to build this community together, have this be a place where we can learn from each other and take action together. And our Advocates Network meets the second Tuesday of every month at 4:30 p.m. So I'll drop the link for our December meeting into the chat. We will be sharing lots of links today on the screen and also in the chat, but we will also send a follow-up email. So if it's going by too quickly for you, don't worry, we'll be sending those out after as well. And the Advocates Network has a set of community commitments that we use in our interactions with each other and to help this space be comfortable for everyone. Those commitments are to move up or move back. So depending on how you normally show up in a space like this, maybe either leave more space for others or take more space for yourself. We also know that none of us know everything, but together we know a lot. And remember that we're here to learn together. And then, of course, we want to presume positive intent, but also acknowledge our impact in our interactions with each other. All right, so we really wanted to start this month's meeting off by celebrating some of the wins that we had last week with the election. So obviously, propositions LL and MM passed. Colorado voters decided to fund healthy school meals for all, and also to allow any extra revenue raised to go towards SNAP, which is really awesome, particularly in this moment. And then we had a lot of local mill and bonds that passed. So just a couple headlines that I screenshotted here from Adams 12, Aspen, and Buena Vista. There were many more. I know our friends at the Colorado School Finance Project have been diligently tracking all of those. So we are excited for all of those local community measures. And we wanted to give folks a few minutes, if anyone wants to come off mute and speak up, to talk about something that you'd like to highlight or celebrate from these election results, either something hyper local in your community, maybe something we did as a state, or what we saw nationally last week. So the floor is open. Feel free to just come off mute.
Well,
I'm not in Douglas.
sorry.
I was going to say I'm not in Douglas County, but the fact that the 4 right-wing school board members were kicked out is a big win.
I was just going to make a comment about the passage of MM that I think is really important. The polling never showed that it was good, that the high point of the polling was that it would win with 54%, and it got close to 60%. And it's one of those that said, shall taxes be raised by? So it was, in all capitals. The conventional wisdom is that when you poll something, it's probably its high watermark, and it just gets pulled down, especially with taxes after that. And this did the complete opposite. And I think it has a lot to do with the fact that the news cycle caught up. I mean, everything we were talking about before that election was about SNAP and nutrition. And so it just is very hopeful to me because the conventional wisdom has always been made it difficult to put things on the ballot because funders are like, well, if you don't have 60% to start with, we can't support it. And now we have evidence that the world can change in ways that make it more and more, and it looks like with the budget problems that we're walking into, that the conditions could really work in the favor of putting something on the ballot, a fiscal thing on the ballot, and improve polling instead of the usual. So I found that very exciting.
Thank you, Jerry and Lisa. Does anyone else have reflections or celebrations they'd like to offer the group? All right, well, we have a lot to cover today, so I invite you to continue adding things into the chat. But for now, we'll move on to state and federal budget and funding news. So as probably all of you are aware, the governor released his budget over a week ago now. Sorry, Lisa. Okay, there we go. Thank you. And so Governor Polis expressed his intention in the budget to implement the new School Finance Act as it was intended to be implemented this year, and that's at 30% with 3-year averaging. Of course, those of us who are watching closely know that there's a lot of uncertainty in some of those numbers, and this is the first proposal of several, right, throughout this entire process, and so there are a lot of things we don't know at this point. Student count and local share are big question marks, and obviously the state legislature has a big task ahead of them with balancing the budget for both our current and our next fiscal year. So, while it's a great sign that in this initial proposal, education is not seeing any cuts, it's also sort of too early to count on this being, it's certainly too early to count on this being the final word. So we're glad to not see cuts from the outset for education, but again, I think this is a helpful time to remind everyone that all of our legislators, friendly to maybe less friendly to education, will be needing to hear from us this session because they're going to have a lot of hard choices to make, and we know that education just can't afford more cuts. Next slide, please. We also wanted to talk for a moment about the federal tax to special education. Again, I'm sure most, if not all of you, have been keeping up with this as well, but in October, the Trump administration fired over 100 employees from the Department of Education's Office of Special Education and Rehabilitative Services. I think I heard on one call that they had like maybe 5 folks left in the office at all, which is just really incredible and awful. So obviously, this is just the latest in a string of attacks to education and special education in particular. We've heard that the administration is planning to move special education to health and human services when we know it's not a health issue, it's an education issue. So while a federal judge has extended the pause on the layoffs due to the shutdown, I think, as far as I've heard, we're just sort of waiting to see what happens with this Office of Special Education update. And I invite, if anyone else on the call has more information, please feel free to jump in. But it's particularly disheartening that all of this is happening as I believe this month is the 50th anniversary of the IDEA, so Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act. And it's feels particularly awful to be celebrating this milestone with this news update. And something that one of our partner organizations at the national level highlighted is that Project 2025 warned us that, of this potential idea to turn, I think that's supposed to be 15 billion, not just 15, um, in IDEA funds into block grants to states. And we, of course, know that this would remove federal oversight. It would weaken protections for our students with disabilities, and is just another way to pave the path for privatization in school. So our first action item of the meeting is to tell your representatives that it's important to protect our students with disabilities. So we've got the QR code there on the slide. I also just dropped a link in the chat. And if you want to pull that up if you want to pull that up and take that action later today or tomorrow, that would be great. Again, we'll also be sending these links out after the meeting. Lisa, I will pass this to you for some updates on 2026 ballot measures.
Sure. So we've talked a number of times about the Protect Colorado's Futures efforts to put a graduated income tax on the ballot, which will not just for education, but for a broad variety of public services. Even though a graduated income tax written the same way has gotten title before, our opponents figured out one more argument and figured out that the way we crossed out, we took out some part of the Constitution, just a strikeout, which means we only have to win with 50%. But they argued that there were actually two issues that get addressed by the crossout. And so we filed a new measure last week, and this is why we started early, to make sure that we could figure out, get all the kinks worked out of this before the final versions go to title board. So we did a new measure that's just like one of the old ones, but strikes out just a couple words less, and I think that will solve the problem. But in the moment, we're working on figuring out, we as Great Ed is on the executive committee and the steering committee of the Protect Colorado's Future, and we're talking about how different permutations that we might look at and put on the ballot. There'll be a little bit more polling to figure out what is the thing that is the union of good policy, what the voters will vote for, and what we can raise the amount of funds we need to get it passed will be. And so our goal is to make sure that there is a measure ready to go in like February, late January, early February, so that we have the full 6 months to gather signatures. So I'll stop there for any questions about the graduated income tax. All right. So the other one that has been discussed here, the Colorado Education Association is looking into the possibility of a debrucing measure that would debruce funding for debruce the state so that funds could be made available for funding specifically K-12 education, or P-12. They have a couple, they have tested some different ideas in that, and they are looking to go do this through the legislature, through a referred measure. there's a lot of conversation happening between these two groups. A lot of understanding of, like, truthfully, if both of them were on and both of them passed, it would be amazing. Because what it would mean is that when surpluses return, and it doesn't look like we'll have surpluses for a few years because inflation is going up and the economy is slowing down. But if we debruced, for instance, if we debruced when those of you may remember, Andrew Romanoff had a ballot measure called SAFE, a savings account for education. If that had passed the 12 years ago that it was proposed, the last 3 years, $8 billion would have gone into the state education fund instead of returned. So for the long haul, the debrucing would be amazing. For the short term, we're going to need a graduated income tax. Well, we need new revenue because between the revenue cuts and the budget cuts that have come from the federal government and Tabor, if we don't do anything in 2026, 2027 is going to be a disaster to our already frayed safety net and our public school system. So I would guess that for the next several months, we will be updating you on both of these things, and we will see what happens. But like I said, the important thing is that there are conversations happening amongst all of those folks. All right.
Any questions on the ballot measures? I know this group has been particularly interested, so thank you for continuing to follow along with that. And we're excited to, as Lisa said, in the next few months, have some final decisions between some of the options and hopefully get out there and start collecting signatures and spreading the word across the state about a revenue raising measure. Sorry, Lisa, would you go back, please? I think most of the folks on this call have been attending our calls for a while, but just wanted to sort of do some level setting and make sure that we're all on the same page about what challenges we as a state are facing in being able to fully and fairly fund our public schools. So one of those things is Tabor, or the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights, which is obviously related to the ballot measures that we were just talking about. But for anyone who may be unfamiliar, the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights installs a cap on how much revenue the state can collect, and also prohibits tax changes without it going to the ballot for the people to vote on. It does a lot of other things, but those are kind of the two things that we talk about most often related to education. We also are facing a number of challenges at the federal level, as I'm sure you're all aware. Obviously, with this administration in particular, we're seeing funding cuts to education, nutrition. Obviously, we just talked about the massive cuts that the Office of Special Education is experiencing. And we're also, Colorado is one of only a few states that has something called rolling conformity, where our taxes, our state tax structure is very closely tied with the federal taxes. So the federal tax cuts that the wealthiest people in our country received through the 2025 reconciliation bill earlier this summer means that for our current fiscal year, Colorado lost about $1 billion because our state taxes are tied to the federal taxes. And I'm sure you will all remember that this past legislative session, the Colorado State Legislature had to cut about $1.2 billion from current services for the fiscal year that we're in now, which started in July. The impact of this federal cut, this $1 billion that we're now missing, is also for the current fiscal year. So it's, if you can remember sort of the contentious conversations that were happening at the legislature and all the hard decisions they had to make to cut services from last year to this year, we're going to just continue seeing some of those conversations, unfortunately. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone is kind of aware of those things. And I know we've been having this conversation at the Advocates Network and in smaller groups, but we've just found it helpful to sort of lay this out visually for everyone. I know there's a lot of words on the slides. You don't have to read them all. But Great Ed obviously has our Get It Done campaign, which we've talked a lot about here at Advocates Network. We have our Every Student Welcome Network. We've also been doing work promoting public education and fighting privatization. And of course, as Lisa just highlighted, thinking about what fiscal reform would look like on the 2026 ballot. And we want to sort of make it clear that these campaigns and projects are happening separately. So, for example, signing on to Get It Done doesn't automatically mean that you're with us for a graduated income tax or a debrucing measure. But it's also sort of, we can't really talk about these projects and campaigns that we're doing without highlighting how interconnected they are. So all of this work that we're doing as Great Ed is really crucial to ensuring that we have adequate funding and supports so that our public school system can meet the needs of all of our students. So again, while they're, we talk about these campaigns sort of separately from each other, and they are separate, and they all feed into this larger North Star. Next slide, please. And so to help sort of illustrate this, some of you may have seen this slide before, but we just updated it with where we are now and what our path in the future is. So as you know, the Get It Done campaign and our Public School Strong Colorado program, that's really been the focus of the last year or so, is building up local teams, helping regular everyday people understand the issues with school funding in Colorado, and getting people energized to advocate around it. And we've been doing this work so that in 2026, we can work with the legislature, and our legislators can create a blueprint for student success. I think all of you will be familiar with Great Ed has been working very closely with Representative Jennifer Bacon, who is sort of leading the charge on creating this blueprint. She's gathered a great group of legislators that is really starting to put their minds to this challenge. They've also started going on school district tours, meeting with superintendents and people from really districts across the state. So that's one thing that we're working towards in 2026. And then, of course, sort of the other half is that we know our state needs some sort of revenue raising measure to pass in 2026. So the blueprint piece is sort of saying, if we had more money, what would we do with it? How would we, what would our roadmap be for getting the state to really deliver on the results and recommendations of the adequacy studies? And then the revenue raising measure would sort of give us the funding to be able to start working on that. Of course, we're going to need additional funding for public education in the future in order to really implement the adequacy studies. And then, as always, our North Star, and I just added those little sparkles, is a public school system where all of our students can thrive. And so that's sort of the picture of where we are now, where we're going as it relates to funding. And of course, all along the way, we need people in policy that create welcoming, equitable schools that meet students' needs. And so that's where Great Ed's Every Student Welcome Network comes in. We're also working with the Great Schools Thriving Communities Coalition and a lot of other organizations to move along not just the funding pieces, but also ensure that schools are a place where our students can feel safe and seen and heard. Any questions on how this all fits together? I hope the visual is a little bit helpful. Go ahead, Barbara.
Well, I'm not sure I have a question other than there's an awful lot of priorities here. And all I can say is it seems really overwhelming. It just feels overwhelming. And I just had to get that off my chest. And daunting. And it was only because I'm so upset at the federal government maybe right now. But we have to do what we have to do. And we have to get things done that we have to get done.
Barbara, I couldn't agree more. It really is that everything is overwhelming now. And what we're hoping to do is provide avenues where you can take action and feel like you're making a difference. Colorado's going to have to protect itself from the federal government. And right now our hands are tied behind our back by Tabor. But we are trying to because of our own feeling of overwhelmedness and knowing that that we can start breaking it down into manageable pieces. And right now, there are actions that we'll be asking you to take that are building toward a whole network of people who can work next year to put something on the ballot and make sure that we are protecting our students. But at the same time, man, there's a whole lot of petitions that I sign and donation, you know, it is overwhelming. And we just want to make sure that we're providing people who are so inclined to have like bite-sized chunks to build our whole community that are gonna stand up for public education statewide and nationally.
And I thank you, Lisa. And I really think that's helpful. And, that's reassuring because I know it does you have to go that way and making sure it's bite size. But it's helpful to know where an entry point might be where someone can pick and choose, but depending on their time and energy to get involved.
I love that idea of an entry point. That it's those four categories are kind of like doors. It's like where all roads lead, all rooms lead to the North Star, but whatever feels manageable and you're most passionate about, you can open that door, whether it's the Every Student Welcome Network, Get It Done, fighting privatization, they're all toward the same goal. And we will keep everybody posted in all of those places about the next steps.
Lisa, would you go back to that slide that showed those 4 boxes? Thank you, Barbara. Just to echo Lisa, I agree that it is overwhelming. And then, unfortunately, I think our opposition has the upper hand, right, in making us feel like we have all these fires to put out. And, this is by design that they want us to be feeling overwhelmed and unsure of where to start. And so whenever this may or may not be helpful to folks individually, but whenever I start to feel overwhelmed, I try to remember like, that's exactly what they want. And so I can't, sometimes it works better than others, but I think that as you said, Barbara, and as Lisa said, we are, there's a lot of work to do, and we're hoping that these different issues that we're working on can offer people different entry points based on their experience or their interest. And I think the more that we can help connect the dots for people and really say, whether you're working on school funding or welcoming schools or fighting privatization, even if they feel different, they are all connected. And so I think part of what we're hoping to do is to make that part of the larger conversation that we're having out in our community about the fact that all these issues are so interrelated and that any work we do on one of them helps advance the other. So that's what I hope that folks can remember when it's, when times are tough and it does feel overwhelming. And I think to that point, this is a good segue. At last month's meeting, we had the Padlet for folks to fill in what they want to do, what they're inspired to do by the end of 2025, what they are inspired to do in 2026, and what support they need from Great Ed to get there. So I just wanted to bring that back around as we've sort of done this level setting with the challenges that we face and all the different entry points and doors and the different things that Great Ed is here working on with your support. I wanted to remind folks of the things that they said that they wanted to do this year. So Lisa, if you can go back. We had, again, these are just screenshots of what you all had put up. So there was some points about engaging with legislators, having more, bringing Great Ed and Get It Done to do more presentations in your community, talking with your school board members, places that you can set up another meeting or presentation in the Boulder area, and looking into how to provide guidance to schools regarding adjustments with the ever-changing political landscape for LGBTQ plus folks in Colorado. Absolutely. So as we are maybe feeling overwhelmed by everything that's going on and all the work there is to do, I hope that these reminders of things that you all said last month can sort of help you think about what the next 2 months and beyond will look like. And then for 2026, people were very focused on midterms. Hopefully this sort of changing tide that we saw last week will just continue into 2026. Again, someone else said turn the house blue. Of course, we have Get the Ballot initiative finalized, work on signatures, getting more income for our public schools. We have someone in the group last month who is pursuing elected office and really wants to use education as a foundation, which is awesome. Continuing to counter the political and partisan focus of the Colorado Springs D11 school board. And I appreciate all of these, but I think I have to give a special shout out to this one, which is showing parents and the community that they can have an impact on district decisions. I think that's like a key principle to the Get It Done campaign, and the work that we are hoping to do with all of you is to just help people realize that local decisions do matter, school districts do matter, and that they can have a say and have an impact. And then in terms of things that you all were looking for from Great Ed, a theme was building statewide coalitions and building relationships, because some other advocates don't always have the time to lead on this. So they need Great Ed to help out. People talked about compelling and catchy messaging, both for graduated income tax and for school funding in general. Similarly, someone asked for a database or catalog of resources for parents, families, and communities to advocate. And then just, again, for Great Ed to continue to grow this network and help present with groups in your community. So go ahead, Lisa.
I was just going to jump in on that catalog of resources. It really is, that's what we're trying to create with the Every Student Welcome Network. And so encourage folks who are interested in making sure that you have access to toolkits and messaging and equity policies to join the Every Student Welcome Network.
Yes, that's a great lead in to the next slide, which is about our resources. So I will drop these links in the chat. I didn't put the Every Student Welcome Network on the slide, so thank you, Lisa, for the reminder, but I will drop it in the chat right now. So we would love to come and speak with really any group in your community. So as always, we encourage folks to fill out that presentation request form. Within the last few weeks, we've talked to school boards. I'm actually sitting today in a random classroom in Summit School District because I was meeting with their superintendent and some advocates about an hour ago. Lisa presented to the Denver District Accountability Group. She presented to a charter school classroom recently. So we've had all different kinds of requests. We're really excited to be meeting folks where they are and talking about school funding. For folks who are looking to continue learning about school funding, we have the Get It Done website and toolkit, which has some information and advocacy resources. One thing that's linked on our Get It Done website is a YouTube playlist, I believe it's called, that has a number of videos that we've sort of curated from ourselves and other organizations like the Colorado School Finance Project that really help make this like more digestible for the average person. And I also shared the link to the Every Student Welcome Network. We'd love to have folks join us there. And of course, if there's a particular organization that you want us to come talk to or that you think should be involved in Get It Done or Every Student Welcome Network, please let me know. You can drop that in the chat. You can send Lisa or I an email. I'll put my email in the chat right now. And we will continue, working on these resources, sharing out talking points, especially as we continue work on the ballot measure. But just to say, we hear you on the things that you need from us. Here's some resources and we'll keep working on it. All right, let's see. We've got about 15 minutes, a little bit more than that left. So I wanted to take some time and return to our conversation from last month about the federal tax credit voucher program. Great Education has been leading the Great Schools Thriving Communities Coalition in asking our governor to opt us out of this as a state. So we've made a lot of progress since the Advocates Network last met in October. We've put together an open letter to the governor that organizations can sign on to. We also have a national letter that some of our national partners wrote that's sort of generic to every state's governor and has sign-ons from every state. So we'll be delivering both the Colorado specific one and the national letter to Governor Polis before Thanksgiving. We also have an online petition for individuals to sign on to, asking our current and future governor to opt Colorado out of the program. We will have a press release that accompanies our delivery of these documents. We have a social media toolkit and talking points. And if anyone in this group is interested in helping us out with an op-ed, please let me know. We also have met, Lisa and I recently met with Kevin Wellner from the National Education Policy Center, which is housed at UC Boulder. And he and Kathy Gebhardt have submitted an op-ed, I believe, to the Sun at this point, Lisa. Mm-hmm. So hopefully that will continue, that will help generate some conversation as well. Go ahead, Barbara.
Like, where's the toolkit and the talking points?
Yes, on a coming slide.
Oh. And then I have another question too, but go ahead.
Okay. Well, you can ask your other question and then we'll share the resources.
Okay. I don't know. There's seems like there's a lot of these things floating around, and maybe I'm thinking of one that came out of A4 PEP. It could have been, or maybe it could have been you. Whether it, and I passed it on up the ladder for the league, and it got to the appropriate LAC team, And then it came back down and said, what's the source of this letter? So I guess that's on the international one. I don't have any questions about the one that's local, but give us some more information about this in the national one, I guess is what I'm asking.
Sure. So the national letter, yes, probably it was the national letter that we had shared last month or 2 months ago, which came from two organizations, the Alliance to Reclaim Our Schools and PEER, which stands for Partnership for Equity and Education Rights. And I can type those in the chat.
Oh, good, because I don't think I tried to get back to my team and I just got swamped with election stuff. So I forgot to follow up and let them know.
There are a lot of national coalitions that we are connected to, and it's kind of hard to know who's doing exactly what. But AROS, the Alliance to Reclaim Our Schools, and PEER are ones that we are very closely working with. And there's also the Heal Together that we're working with the
Oh, yeah.
School Strong, and we're always trying to like figure out which of these resources we should pass along, and this is one where it was really nice to get the help from the national folks to get us to give us something to work with, since it's overwhelming.
Yes.
But that's those are two organizations that are very much aligned with the North Star, basically.
Okay, well, that's good. Then I'll stay with that because I don't know what happened to that last one. But if I have access to your letter and this letter, then I'll go back and push it up to the people who make the decisions. Not me, but the other people. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. So we'll send the link on the next slide, but the letter that we're asking folks to sign on to now is much more specific to Colorado, right? Because we sort of tailored it to what we've heard that the governor is sort of thinking on this. We reference the fact that Colorado voters now 3 times have rejected vouchers on the ballot. And, just talking a little bit more about our state specific situation. And so we did that in partnership with a bunch of other organizations. So thank you to those who are on the call who gave your input. It was really helpful in aligning our messaging. I just quickly wanted to follow up on some questions that were asked at last month's meeting. So one question was, does the power to opt in lie with the governor? And as I mentioned, Lisa and I recently met with Kevin Wellner, who's much more of an expert on this. And I think, Lisa, please help fill in here, but I think the sort of, it seems like there is not a clear defined answer on who can opt in. The language within the Educational Choice for Children Act is purposely very vague and says like something like anybody that has the ability to opt in. So
it does specifically say governors and or others that are how did you said it right? Have the authority to opt in. It's like that's unclear, but the governor could, and then of course the legislature could, or the state board. It's unclear if the governor's action, how the governor's action could be countered.
Right. And most of really all, I think, of the national efforts that we've seen on this have been targeting governors, I think, because of that uncertainty. We think that, it seems unlikely that the Colorado State Legislature would opt us in. So I think that's why we're choosing to target the governor, because he has said it's something that he's interested in. Potentially down the line, there might be room for some other, maybe one path could be to call it into question later on. But I think that because it's purposely uncertain, we are going towards targeting the governor.
Also the potential future governors. At this moment, we know that, well, we will be sending this to all gubernatorial candidates. I think there are like 16 on the Republican side. I've heard a statement from Phil Weiser that he would not opt in, and that's the only one that I know first, like, certain where they stand.
Mhm. Another question from last month's meeting was how many scholarship granting organizations Colorado actually has. And so we posed this question to Kevin Wellner again, and he was very helpful. And some of our other partners in Colorado have been helpful in sort of parsing this out as well. The language in the act, it basically makes it very easy to create a scholarship granting organization. So the question is not so much how many we have right now in Colorado, because this whole program is intentionally making it very easy for just about anyone to create their own scholarship granting organization. It seems like because it's purposely so vague, it seems like something that you or I might be able to do. And so I think the concern is not necessarily with how many organizations we currently have that could take advantage of this, but sort of the possibility of other groups popping up that are new and unknown. And then about the question of whether the voucher and the program could be used for public schools. No, the Department of the Treasury has not gone through the regulatory process. So they haven't specifically outlined what this will look like. And so we can't say for sure how it might be used for public schools. And given the direction that the administration has gone in rulemaking, given the path that we've seen similar sort of programs go, as some of you correctly pointed out, it seems very unlikely that this program could be used in any way for public schools, but rather that it would be sort of a carrot offered and then later taken away. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, Kristen, this scholarship granting organization, I'm not familiar with that. Can you give an example of something that exists right now that qualifies as an SGO?
Yes, thank you for asking that. Actually, Lisa, I'm trying to remember the name of.
I think the most likely would be ACE.
Yes.
And there's a number. I know we have a lot of friends here from A for PEP, so we would want to welcome all of you to weigh in. But I think SGO is I think created in this statute. It was done very quickly. There's a lot of problems and a lot of questions that come from it. But I think a state gets to say, okay, we're going to create a list of SGOs. And so especially before there's any regulations out, and as Kristen said, the regulations, if to be consistent with everything else coming from the administration, is going to be in service of privatization. So I think the one that the organization that exists right now that is closest is probably ACE, which is Steve Schuck and Alex Cranberg started it in Douglas County. We have in El Paso County, we have some El Paso people here too who might shed some light, but I think that's the closest thing. They can get money from the federal government this SGO would take money from somebody who wants the $1,700 credit. And then they would give it in in scholarships, could be to private school, could, that's, and so that's what Kristen is saying. It's really unclear, but ACE is probably the closest thing that already exists.
Thank you.
I did drop the link for that website in the chat, Chris, if you just want to take a poke around their site. I am seeing that it's already 5:25. So if folks have additional questions or concerns, please do send Lisa or I or both of us an email. But just in the interest of time, I'm going to keep it moving. So we would, I think I will send you all the information for this rather than taking, 5 or 10 minutes to do it now. But our main ask of you all today is to sign on to our petition on Public School Strong if you haven't already. While you're signing the petition, that's a great time to make sure that you are a member of the Public School Strong Colorado group. And if there is already a team for your school district, we encourage you to join that as well. I know we have, for folks on the call, we have a team for Denver, for Boulder. I think we're working on Clear Creek and Summit teams. Greeley. I'm trying to think of
Denver.
where else people here are from.
Adams 12.
Yes, Jeffco does have a team already. And okay, so signing the petition yourself and then making sure that you are part of Public School Strong, that you have an account and that you're all signed up. And then the last piece, of course, is to share the petition. So as a reminder, we have the Public School Strong petition that we're asking individuals to sign. And then we also have the open letter to the governor that we are asking organizations to sign on to. So Barbara, that would be the one to bring back up the ladder. We are working on kind of a tight timeline. We're hoping to deliver the letter to the governor before Thanksgiving. So we are hoping to get as many signatures and organizational sign-ons as we can by next Wednesday, the 19th. We will continue taking sign-ons after that, but in order to be included in the version that we're actually printing and delivering, that's the deadline, is next Wednesday.
Are you sending this slide out to us?
Yes, I will send all of this out to you.
Thank you.
So we have, I also dropped some links in the chat as well, but there's a link to the petition, to the open letter for organizations to sign on. And then there's some resources with, like, if you want to read more about this, or if you're looking for some talking points or some quick social media, a quick social media post that is in the voucher campaign resources document.
And I would just add, what you're offering people when you share this is a way to take action. And one of those small bite-sized pieces that you can do to protect Colorado students. So don't feel like you're imposing on people. You're giving them an opportunity to ease a little bit of their anxiety and overwhelmedness.
And I think it's just, it's just another opportunity to have the conversation about how our schools in Colorado are underfunded, and sort of connecting back to the larger theme that we really need to be taking action to protect our public schools and to better serve our students. All right, I know that we have shared a lot of information and a lot of action items. We will be sending out an email with all of that. I'll send a quick email right after this, just so that all of the folks here have those voucher materials. And I will just turn it to Lisa for this final ask.
So many of you have been on probably just about every advocacy network call, and a lot of people are new to this. As you'll recall, maybe those of you who've been around, Cody started these over 5 years ago. It was sort of during COVID and a way to pull people together. And times are different. I mean, we've had a lot of changes in what's happening at the federal level and the opportunity to really start organizing for the ballot measure. So we want to make sure that the gatherings that we have really meet the needs of our supporters and our advocates. And so we really would love for you to take this. I'm going to leave it here. Really, really would love for you to go through this survey to just let us know what it is that you find really useful. And really what we're trying to figure out is, because a day like this, we had a lot of information and less time to chat about things, which we love doing. And as the time gets closer and closer to the petitions, we're going to have more and more specific things and asks, and we want to be able to have people mentor each other and help each other. And so it's like we've got the informing function that Advocates Network has done, the listening function, and the action function, and it's a lot to put in an hour. And so we are at this point really wanting to survey our folks to say, you know, how can we change things? How do we continue to meet the demand for what we've been doing in Advocates Network, and also make sure that we're able to start moving into this really more concerted action, long-term, let's get this done time. So please, your input is really, really important to us.
I did just update the settings on the form. Sorry about that, but hopefully folks can access it now.
Yep, Jerry says yes.
Okay, great. All right. Okay, thank you for confirming that the link works now. I think that's all we have. Lisa, is there another slide? Oh, of course. Don't forget, as the cold weather is approaching, to support Great Ed, help us spread the word with Get It Done, about the Get It Done campaign, with a cozy sweatshirt or t-shirt of your choice. And the funds that are raised with your purchase do come directly to us as well. So you're supporting us by getting our name and our campaign out there, and with a little financial boost as well. Now I think that's really all that we had. Thank you all for staying a few minutes past 5:30. We will be sending our normal sort of recap email in the next few days, but I'll send a quick email just to this group right now, or tonight, with links to the voucher materials and that feedback form. And we hope to see you next month at our next meeting.
Thanks.
All right, thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody. Next one is December. How about that?
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Maybe snowing, who knows?
Who knows?
Or 80 degrees. Who knows? Thanks,
Happy
Lori.
Thanksgiving.
You too. Thank you, Barbara.
You're welcome. Thank you all.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for getting on, Lori.